Yo everybody, Haku here with a review of One Piece Chapter 812, Capone Gang Beige. And it was the best chapter we have had in a long time, and there have been so many great chapters lately with the end of Dressrosa and the Zoar. Just so much world building and development, plot progression. Let's just get into this. So first we got Peckham's reaching Zo, and we knew that from last week. But then we find out that he has Capone with him. So Peckham's and Capone together at Zo, seeing the destruction of what Jack left behind. Going into what the Straw Hats were doing around that time, we see Nami trading clothes with Wanda, explaining how Wanda got Nami's outfit and why Nami's wearing that dress. And apparently trading clothes is a sign of friendship in mink culture. We also find out that the Garchu that everyone's been using is actually a mink greeting, and Sanji's using it running around all the different mink women because Sanji is a furry. Sanji likes all women, it doesn't matter. We see when Brook is speaking a flashback kind of thing with Momo as a dragon in his room, and that's just where they say Momo is. It's where he's been this whole time. He's just in his room in dragon form so that they don't know that he is a samurai. Or from Wano country. I guess anyone from Wano is considered a samurai. Now, something I really liked, we had Caesar and Chopper getting along, smiling, well, kind of getting along. Chopper was talking down to him a little, but they were getting along for the most part, working on medicine together. They were talking to Brooke, who was in the room with them, and there's a mink that runs in, and Caesar's still just shocked. He's hiding his face, says his name is Cedar. But overall, it really made Caesar seem like a nice, genuinely nice guy for a while. He's happy making that medicine, working with Chopper, calling himself a genius. It was really nice to see that relationship being built upon. Now, when Peckhams finds out that Jack was the one who did this to Zo, he uses the name Beast's Pirates to refer to Jack and Kaido's crew. So I think that's the first time we've officially heard them called that, and I think that's an awesome name. I love that it's just simple, straight to the point. Kaido's crew are the Beast Pirates. So when Sanji's group sees Peckhams and Capone outside, they start to discuss what they should do because they could just give Caesar over now that Doflamingo's defeated, but Luffy made the big deal of talking into the Den Den Mushi and starting beef with Big Mom, so they're not sure if that would even work. And Caesar tries to play it off like, oh, come on, Blackleg, you wouldn't really hand me over, I'm your friend. And yeah, that's just kind of a joke comedy bit, but I think it does show that Caesar's building upon his relationship with the rest of the Straw Hat crew, and I think that's a very good direction to go with his character, personally. Now, the reason that Big Mom's crew was after Caesar in the first place, Caesar just took money from them for his research to make weapons or whatever for them, and he never gave them anything. So they're obviously mad. They want his head because he betrayed them by ripping them off, and he thought that Doflamingo would be the buffer between Big Mom and himself, but now that buffer is completely gone. Doflamingo's out of the equation, and Caesar is kind of screwed at the moment. Now we get to what I thought was a little bit of an overlooked moment, but probably the coolest looking moment that we've had in a few chapters, which was a standoff between Capone and Peckhams and Brook and Sanji, and I thought the panels for it looks so amazing, especially the one scene where Sanji's still up at the window and he nods down at Capone on the ground. Then there's the big wide view of the four of them standing and talking. It was really cool looking, intense. I loved it. Now the tension there is broken by Peckhams deeply bowing and like hugging up to Sanji because he's super grateful. They saved his family, his friends, his homeland. And he really is truly grateful to the Straw Hat Pirates for it. So much so that he's willing to tell Big Mom that he failed to kill them, just so they give him Caesar, and he says, okay, I got Caesar, but I couldn't get the Straw Hats. Now, Capone obviously sees this as weakness, like, how did you become a big-named pirate? How are you one of Big Mom's big pirates? how are you going to call yourself like an elite pirate if you're just going to give up on the mission your captain gave you because they saved your family and you're being selfish? So an amazing twist I didn't see coming whatsoever. I would not have thought this would be in this chapter. Capone shoots Peckham's in the back with a cool little ability. His hand opens up. The little men are standing inside the palm of his hand and just shoot from out of his hand. I absolutely love. I didn't know what I thought about it back in Sabati, but seeing it now and seeing how it was done in this chapter, I love Capone's Devil Fruit ability. And we get into the actual name of that ability, and it is the Shiro Shiro no Mi. He ate it and become the Shiro Ningen, the Castle Man. So from what we've seen, he can shrink people and objects and put them into his body like a castle, and he can also regrow them to normal size once they're outside of his body or castle. Also, where we get into the first of some translation issues, I read a couple different translations to make sure I got things right, and the Manga Panda said 3 billion, which I knew, you could see it in my live reaction. I knew there was no possible way. That completely threw me off. It couldn't be right. I figured it was probably 300 million. That seems a little low, but not like too low that it's off the mark. So I'd say 300 million is definitely correct, and it's about fair for Capone. He's one of the weaker of the worst generation from what we've seen so far, but still, he's from the worst generation. Really cool character. I really didn't think much of him before, but this chapter really made me enjoy him. Now into another translating error. In the version that I read, he had a crewmate called Wit that captured Nami and Chopper, but in a couple other translations it was Vito, and I think that Vito is a way better translation. Vito would fit with the mafia Italian sort of theme that they had going on with Capone. Another thing, when Capone ends up capturing Caesar that's revealed, he has a Kairoseki spear, which may have just been something to be a plot point at the moment and hold down Caesar, or it could come into play later on. We don't know, but I think it was interesting to note that he has a spear made of a Kairoseki. Now, he convinces Sanji and the rest to enter his castle, and that is his body. So they're shrunk and go into his chest, and then a second version of Capone's self forms within his body, which I think, again, is just really cool. It's a really unique power, and I really like what Oda did with it in this chapter. And it's here that we find out the tea party hasn't happened yet. We haven't missed it yet. And the tea party this time is going to be a wedding. And the wedding is going to be between the third son of the Vinsmoke family, Sanji. Now, I would rather Vinsmoke than Vinsmoke because it sounds cooler, and Sanji smokes, whatever. But either way, Sanji's the third son of a family. So he has at least 2 brothers, might have a few sisters. We don't know. And the Vinsmoke family, maybe they're from the island that they found that crashed ship from. I'm not sure of their importance. I personally want to say they have something to do with the liquor steal that we heard about with the revolutionaries, I believe it was, because I feel like that was mentioned recently enough that it fits in here. So if his family are like liquor steal barons or something of that nature, their ship was from the North Blue and they found a crashed ship around there, Sanji's just from that area, from that family. No, I think that him being a noble, like a world noble, Tenryubito, would be way too high a thing for him, and we just had that with Doflamingo, so I don't think he's going to be that high up. The theory of him being a Gorosei's son or grandson, possibly, but again, I think that might be too high up. I think if I'm going to make one prediction, I'm going to predict that his family is the family that is behind liquor steal. Now into pudding, I think pudding is probably actually going to be the official translation into English. Pudding, I think, sounds better, but it seems to fit into the whole Big Mom thing for her name to be Pudding, and she could be the three-eyed girl that we've seen so far, because why would we be shown her if she's not that important? But I personally think that the three-eyed girl might be a little bit of voter trolling. I think she's not going to be a daughter of Big Mom's, perhaps, but just an important crew member, and we actually haven't seen Pudding yet. We've seen that Sanji loves pretty much every woman, but in the case of like comedically ugly drawn women that Oda's done, Sanji's been completely disgusted by them. And I could see Sanji going in to meet his future wife and it just being hideous spawn of Big Mom. I could completely see Oda doing that just to troll and throw people off by making them think maybe it's the three-eyed girl. So what this chapter really brings me to are there's just so many plot points going on right now. We have Zoe and the Minx and the sacking of the island on the elephant's back by Jack. And we have Jack, who's probably still alive somewhere. We have Kaido looming. He's off with Kids Alliance, who's after Shanks. Now we've got Big Mom and Peckham's and Capone, and is Peckham's going to side with the Straw Hats? Maybe join them as a temporary ally at the least, or maybe even leave Big Mom for them? Or is Big Mom going to side against Capone and Capone's going to be an antagonist? Then we still have Drake working for Kaido that we haven't seen in a while, and I feel like Drake's going to come in pretty soon whenever we get more Jack or Kaido stuff. We've seen that Lucci's still alive. He's with CP0, and we've got to have Lucci and CP0 back in the main story at some point. Buggy just found out that Hyruddin left his employ to go be a part of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. Blackbeard's pirates know where the Revolutionaries' headquarters are. There's stuff going on between the Revolutionaries and Blackbeard that we aren't seeing right now. And to top that all off, we have Weevil hunting down Whitebeard pirates and specifically going after Marco. We have so many plot points in so many different directions. A lot of them probably aren't going to come in till much later, but it's just, there's so many places we could go right now. Jack could return and we could have an arc on Zoe with Jack. We could leave Zoe to go save Sanji right now. I have no idea. There's so many places that could go. And the only guess that I could have is maybe the crew will split again and part of them will go to try and save Sanji and we'll have stuff going on with Big Mom and Sanji. And maybe another half will stay at Zoe and have to deal with Jack and his crew. There's just so much split that Oda can do anything he wants at this point. It's just insane how he set himself up. The story is so big at this point that he can go anywhere with it. So this is just a normal 8-12 chapter, and it was a normal size, and yet it had so much content. We got world building, plot progression, we got character development like crazy, finding out more about Sanji, and we haven't found out this much about him in maybe since the Baratier arc. It'd be wrong of me not to give this chapter a 10 out of 10. Completely wrong, given all of the content put into this one chapter. Like, I don't want to sound like a One Piece fanboy, and I'm trying not to, but I can't nitpick anything really specifically bad about this chapter. There's just so much that happened all together. So, I'm excited for next week. I'm sure you all are too. And I will have a discussion video on Jack, Whitebeard, and Edward Weevil up this weekend, and next Thursday or whenever the chapter drops, I'll have my live reaction and review out again. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you all for the support. I'll see you all next time.